Hello, everyone. I am Michelle from Pasadena Humane. It has been a long time since we've been back for watercolors, and today we've got the in-house wonderful and talented Miss Loni.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
And we are joined by Miguel from his space. He is the resident animal expert.
Okay.
Sorry.
In-house comedian.
So hopefully we'll be able to see Miguel on camera, and he's going to share lots of facts with us with our animals today. Loni, are you excited to paint again?
Oh, yeah. I've been sitting here waiting and waiting for you guys to come back. So I'm super amped, Michelle.
All right. Well, before I let you take it away, we're going to go over some webinar reminders for those of us that are joining us brand new today.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, for some reason I'm having a webcam issue. I'm trying to fix it right now.
Okay. You can stay on mute while Michelle goes through the webinar reminders. No worries.
All right, so let's see, we're going to put this in present mode. So for those of you that are joining us brand new today, or even for those of you who are joining us for the first time in quite some time, here are your reminders. This is an audiovisual presentation, so you are muted and we can't see or hear you, but you can see or hear us. That's the most important part. If you've got any questions, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side, and we will get to them as soon as we can. Today's webinar, we will be talking about the rose-haired tarantula and the hawk. As always, if you'd like to share your artwork, which we really hope that you would like to share your artwork because we love seeing the things that you have created, go ahead and use this link here, and I'll drop that in the chat box as well. And then our last watercolor for this year, we're going to talk about the legless lizard and the monarch butterfly. And no, the legless lizard is not just a snake. He's actually a pretty cool little creature. At any time, if you want to go back and re-watch anything, this webinar is recorded and it'll get sent to you or your parents tomorrow afternoon. And without further ado, Miss Loni, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Hey, guys. So before we get started, just a reminder that you should have received in an email, or the awesome Michelle will actually drop this stencil into the chat box if you need to print it out quickly. It should be available for you. So I went ahead, and since we've all done this before, most of us, I went ahead and just cut out all of the shapes already and had them pre-drawn on here on my 2 watercolor sheets of paper. So that's it's kind of a harder piece of paper, so it works really well with watercolor and it really soaks up the color. But if you have a regular white paper, no worries. I went ahead and outlined them like I said, and then I also am using again my nifty little Amazon watercolor thing. It's really cheap, it's a really great deal, and you can take it anywhere to get started on your watercolors. So we're going to go ahead and use this. And then that cool little watercolor set actually came with these really nifty watercolor pens. I always talk about these. They make a really big difference with some of the detail work we want to do. So you can tell that the tips are very different when you're using it. And the more you use them, the more comfortable you'll get with them. And then I have a pencil here that I'm going to use to outline the stuff, kind of the work with you that I do now. And I have this cool little, just like a napkin to soak up some of the color, so you can kind of watch the technique. Don't worry, you guys. The good thing about watercolor is you can always practice again and again and use the templates over and over. So before we get started to even talk about some of the animals that we're covering today, which is the tarantula and the hawk, I wanted to go ahead and outline the tarantula and hawk with you at this time so we can just get started on the painting right after that. So I went ahead and outlined Mr. Tarantula, as you can see, but I'm going to go ahead and make a darker line for you guys as we work on it now. So if you're outlining it now, you can go ahead and just kind of follow along. I know it's a little bright, so I want to go ahead and just darkline it. So as we get started, I am going to just sort of follow the body lines. And as you can see, all of his little digits are all along here. So I'm going to go ahead and outline them now, and you're going to segment them. So I've segmented them in 3 pieces, like so. And this one's a little bit more of a detailed piece. The other hawk that we're going to do is more, it's going to be like a black and white hawk. But I know that we have red-tailed hawks in our neighborhood. So I'm going to go ahead and do that after. And then here I go segmenting all of them. I think you can see that pretty well. And you can practice this after as well. And then I'm going to go ahead, and as I go down and do all of this part, we will go ahead and outline his abdomen after, like so. And don't worry, and take your time as you're doing this with me. And I'm doing it extra dark so you guys can see all of sort of the details. And then his abdomen has this big sort of squarish box in the center, like that. And let me hold it up, or actually move it like that. And then his fangs kind of come out. And then his final leg, like so. So, and then I did these like little ripple lines, but we can go back and you'll see what I do with those later. But as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. So I'll hold that up for a second for some of my friends who might need to actually take a really good look at it. And then we're gonna move on.
Oh, I was gonna say those 2 little like shorter looking legs that you drew in the front, they're actually called pedipalps.
Oh, cool.
And the food handling appendages for the rose hair tarantula.
That's so awesome. Yeah, so good point, Michelle. So what we're gonna do is actually, let's talk about the colors we're gonna use. So since it's called the rose-haired tarantula, oops, I wanna use sort of colors of the desert, because this is a desert creature. So I'm gonna use more of this rose color and more of this like brown sort of dusty rose, if you can see that, Michelle. Because I think that even anything in this family, you guys, will work really well. You can use a whole variation of these colors, but this is definitely something that will complement the tarantula's vibe. And this is definitely a vibe. So the next one we're gonna take and work on and outline really quickly is the hawk. This one's really easy because we're actually just gonna follow the neckline of the hawk like so, just like that. And then we're actually gonna finish the wing. And I'm going ahead and I'm just taking a moment so the light adjusts. So when you guys see it, you can actually see the work that I'm doing. And then working on his legs, you can kind of freestyle that part of his leg like so. And then we're just going to add the claws, which I think they're called claws, right, Miguel?
Yes, talons. Actually, they're called talons, but yeah, it's a form of claw. And that's how they grab their prey.
So friends, I'm going ahead and just freestyling. So I'm doing 1 or 2, 3 talons in the front. And then I'm going to add like a little back talon behind. So you can go ahead and work on that, but that actually gives it a different sort of perspective when you outline it like that. And then just go ahead and outline the outside of his body. And I'm going to make really sort of thin eyes that you can see. And I'll hold it up so you guys can take a look at it in a second. And then the practicing with the wings in terms of drawing the wings out, I'm actually just going to do a trick where I'm going to go to the very top of his wings, his feathers, and I'm just going to like go down and just finish them. And you can go ahead and practice that yourself, but you can draw however you want to finish these wing lines. So no pressure. Wings kind of go everywhere and they flow. And because this hawk is flying in the wind, you can kind of do whatever you want it to do. So go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to outline this part here and then kind of finish his tail. And this part you can kind of freestyle again as well. So I'm going to pull this up close to the camera so you guys can actually see that part. Super simple. And then his beak, I'm just going to go ahead and round out and finish there. And he's got like this little white mark. And that's actually really good because that'll give a distinction between the black and white in the actual painting we work on. And with him, I'm just using black and white and a blue sky. So as you can see here, I did a really kind of easy version because I didn't want you guys to do too much detail in this work. So the first one we're actually going to work on is the tarantula. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and use probably the medium tip and the smaller tip for this. And go ahead and, like I said, use the colors that are sort of more in the rose color family. I always start with a light color first because you can always go light to dark, but you can't really undo darkness. So the darkest color you're going to want to put on here, of course, would be black. And that would be the end and the final result when you want things to pop out and outline. So anyways, hey, Miguel, how's it going? Are you back?
Good. Yes, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Difficulties, but I'm back.
So Miguel, why does the tarantula have this kind of color scheme?
Well, basically they're burrowers and they're ground dwelling. You know, unlike most spiders, they don't build webs and stuff. They build on the ground, so they're very cryptic. So they blend into the ground where they're at, and they're ambush predators. So they just stay in line, wait for something like an insect, reptile, small bird, whatever comes by. They're very opportunistic, and they overpower them with their size and their pedipalps, and that's how they capture their prey.
Got it. And Michelle was so lovely to bring up pedipalps. So what are pedipalps?
Pedipalps are basically what they use to grab their food. It's almost like an extra. They look like an extra set of legs, but they're not. They're actually help with their mouth. Their mouth pieces to bring things into their fangs.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just like two extra appendages that are connected, but they're not true legs like their other four that are on each side of their body.
Got it. And are they painful? Like when people could they actually be bitten by the pedipalps and actually get hurt?
The bite of a tarantula can hurt. Depending on the size of the tarantula, if you get bit by a Chilean rosehair, it will hurt a bit, but and they're mildly venomous, but they only have enough venom to to capture their prey, like insects and small reptiles and stuff. Other tarantulas do have a more powerful bite and will give you a more painful bite and have stronger venom that will not necessarily kill you, but make you sick for a bit.
Got it. Of course, one of the kids is probably going to ask, Miguel, have you been bitten by one before?
No, I have not. Chilean rosehairs are pretty docile. They're pretty common in the pet trade because they're very docile. Usually they're mellow. They tend not to be very defensive. You really do have to aggravate one in order for it to bite you. They're generally very calm. Usually it's if you don't, they give you a warning too. So they'll lift up those pedipalps and expose their fangs. You'll see them and they'll lift up the two front legs too like this, and they'll show their fangs. And that's pretty much telling you that they're not having it right now, so you should leave them alone. And if you heed that warning, you shouldn't get bit. Now, if you keep trying to pick up the tarantula or keep bothering it, it will most likely strike and bite you.
Got it. Do you guys at Kids Space have tarantulas that are available for viewing right now?
Yeah, we have 3 Chilean rosehairs. If you want, I could bring one up to screen.
Oh, cool. Can we see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's right behind you.
Cool. So while Miguel's setting that up, as you can see, he has a really cool little background. It's not a fake background, guys. That actually really is a background with a bunch of cool animals. He's going to share, and that's the reason why we have him on here, because we're doing a partnership with Kids Space. And so we wanted to show you guys animals that are in our neighborhood that you can actually go visit, which is really cool. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Oh, he's handsome. Is it a male?
Female.
Oh, it's a female. See, I can't even tell.
Female.
How can you tell, Miguel?
They have these extra little what we call tarsal hooks on their legs, and it's only common in females. But if also too, when they molt, which means they shed their skin because their exoskeleton, you could also find their female parts on the shed because it looks, when they take off their skin, it almost looks like a replica of a tarantula. If you didn't know better, you'd think it's a tarantula, but it's just their exoskeleton that's been shed off. And then if you look on their belly, you could tell if it's male or female.
Wow, that's really cool.
She won't.
How did
she might tolerate me, but she normally doesn't like me picking her up by her and showing her belly.
Oh, that's okay. I get it, especially if she's not used to being handled, or I know that you tend to like want to warm up an animal, correct? And sort of get them
Yeah,
comfortable
this
with it.
one would let me handle it, but I don't know if it would let me show off its if it's a
Got
male or prove it's a female.
Got
Because
it.
it would have to make me invert it like this. And
Yeah.
she lets me, she's calm, but she generally doesn't like it when she's picked up by 2 fingers.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do actually. So Miguel, how
That's
did you
her.
guys actually get those animals? How did you get those 3 tarantulas?
We got them, we sourced them from a company that sells what we call invertebrates. There, there's places that sell reptiles, there's places that sell dogs and cats and fish. There's
Yeah,
places that just deal with invertebrates. They just sell bugs, and arachnids, and that's where we sourced them from.
got it.
And we sourced 3 of them over the time because females live longer than the males, so we just got lucky, and because it's hard to tell them apart when they're little. But we got
Yeah,
lucky and ended up with 3 females, which is good because they live a lot longer than the males.
got it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that kind of pet for someone who's looking for a tarantula? Like, is that something that a lot of people tend to own?
Yeah, if someone wants a tarantula and really wants to have one as a pet, I would recommend a Chilean rosehair. But I would do my research first. I mean, I'm giving you guys quite a bit of information here today, but also look up information, ask questions, housing requirements, and they do live a long time. So if you get a female, they could easily live over 20 years. So it's a commitment.
Wow,
If you get a tarantula, you're going to have it for about, between 10 to 15 years, depending on how you keep it.
that's so cool though.
Yeah, they're really
That'd be
cool. They're generally more display animals. Some of them, some really don't mind being handled and taken out. None of ours really mind being taken and handled out. The being touched, they're really not an animal you want to pet though, because as you saw here, and I'll bring it. Oh, already a little shy, already going to hide, but
Mhm.
you can see
Oh
the hair.
yeah,
And those
yeah,
hairs are what protects them. That's basically, I know we're talking about biting as a defense, but they normally kick those hairs out. And what they do is they use their rear legs, and right there where you're coloring in the rump and those hairs, they go like
yeah,
they flick them like this, and then they flick those hairs out. And what they do is they get in predators' eyes or nose, and it just becomes very irritating. And I know just getting an eyelash in my eye really bugs me. If you get one of these hairs in you, I mean, your eyes are gonna be irritated for days. So it's
wow,
their main defense to kind of blind you and make it difficult to breathe if you inhale those hairs.
yeah. Wow, I didn't even realize that that was another mechanism. But I think if I were to feel them on me, it'd feel a little icky, you know?
Yeah, and they usually tell you. I mean, they give you body language. They warn you first before they kick. They tend to maybe do that, and then they might just do a quick little flick with their rear legs. If you see them flick lightly, that means they're gonna probably kick some hairs at you. So you better
Got
just leave
it.
them alone and cover the enclosure before you get a bunch of hairs up in the air.
I see. Okay, guys, so I went ahead and I did the like a brown color, and then I went over and kind of did a really just darker red color on top. I'm gonna go back now and I'm gonna do just the black on the edge of his feet, and then just kind of add some hairs and stuff. So what about socially? How are they social with, are they territorial? Are they friendly with other tarantulas or other wildlife? How does that usually work?
They tend to be pretty solitary. They usually only get together when it's breeding season. And
Mm-hmm.
here in California, if you live in the foothills and stuff, people say, every couple of seasons, they see a bunch of tarantulas, out and about, which is our California tarantula, which is similar to the Chilean rosehair, except it's black, really dark color. It's almost black. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually the males out there looking for females to breed. So that's usually why we see a lot of them during certain times of the year. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, people always worry about that. But in the tarantula world, after the males breed, they pass away, so they don't live too long after they breed. So,
Got it.
but the
And what
females live
about,
a good life.
and in terms of when they have their babies, how many babies do they usually have on average?
Oh, they could have up to 200 babies at once.
Wow.
Yeah, so they lay like a little silk, almost like a cocoon, kind of. If you're familiar with moth cocoons, kind of, but it's real silky. And they keep the egg sac, and they wait, and then they hatch them out, and they'll usually be on the mother's back for a bit until they get old enough, and then they go into the world on their own and fend for themselves.
Okay, I see. And then in terms of how they sort of, their predators, who are their predators usually?
Predators would be birds, maybe other mammals, like it could be jungle cats, southern birds. But a lot of them, they don't get preyed on when they're small. When they're about that size, like the size that I showed you, they're pretty much, they're set. Nothing really messes with them because they're really quick to kick those hairs. It's usually like when they're smaller, when they're like slings and they're really like maybe about this much, like this big around. Usually lizards, birds, other animals in the jungle get them.
And where do they actually hide? I mean, we don't see them a lot, right?
Right. They like to they'll either burrow, they'll make little burrows themselves, or they could use an abandoned burrow left by another animal, and they just kind of go ahead and retreat into there. Like you'll see this one, I'll show you this one again. This, we have a log hide for this one, so he doesn't have to dig, but as you can see, it's already retreating into its hide.
Yeah.
See, it's already kind of going
And so
in
it's
there.
important when you, so it's important when you have this kind of animal to give them those sorts of environmental spaces, right? To hide and burrow.
Yeah, every animal should have a place to like retreat and feel safe in, like when they don't want to be out and about. So, and they're mainly nocturnal and sometimes crepuscular, which means when it's starting to get dark early evening. That's really when they're active. And sometimes they do walk around and they will overpower things, but they usually just lie in wait in burrows or that they made themselves or just found in, or like a gap between rocks. And instead of making a web like traditional spiders do, they lay like a drag line, which is like figure like a little tripwire of like silk all the way across.
Yeah.
That tells them what's walking by and notifies them is it something big or is it something small that they could probably come out and eat. So it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. So it's more not like a web, but like you said, a cool little tripwire. And so how many tripwires do you know? I mean, this is a random, you might not know this. How many on average do they have sort of laying in wait?
They normally leave like a couple, like 2 to 3, depending on the burrow. It's usually right in front of the burrow because it's the only thing that walks across it. So there's only a few. Sometimes what we call, they kind of silk, they'll kind of make like a web on the ground, but it's not really a web, it's just a bunch of silk left there too. So it's kind of like their bedding.
That's
They'll
cool.
do that too. But drag lines, it depends. Usually a couple. Ours only do like 2 to 3.
I see.
Maybe in the wild they might do more depending if they have a burrow with a wider space in front of them.
Well, also depending on how hungry they are, no?
Yeah, and it just depends. Yeah, and what they want to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't do these massive. I mean, it won't be a bunch of tripwires. There'll just be a couple that let them know what's coming through.
Got it. How do you like it, Miguel?
It looks good.
Nice, right?
It's almost looks like what we have.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like, guys, I always make multiple copies. And as you can see, this one just got so dramatically darker, but I really love how vibrant this one is. This could be very, just like a very abstract version of this. Michelle, I know you have some really cool fun facts and trivia for the kids, right?
I do have some fun trivia. So I'm going to launch the first poll question. What is the average leg span of a female tarantula?
I know because
I know.
I know, Miguel, you were saying that there were differences between males and females.
I'm sure I could hardly hear you. What'd you say?
Oh, I said, I know that you were telling us earlier that there are differences between male and female tarantulas.
Yes, the females tend to are generally bigger, and the males are generally smaller. Their average span is almost about the same. It's just their bodies, and like the males are smaller, so the females are generally bigger body.
Right. So, all right. Well, it's almost an even split between 2 inches, 5 inches, and 13 inches, but the number one guess was 9 inches.
Wow.
So I do know that the leg span of the females is 5 inches and the males is 3.5 inches.
Yeah, that's correct.
Wow.
So the average, the average is, we generally go by 5, because there are some males that do get the long legs, except they just have a smaller cephalothorax and abdomen, versus the females just have the bigger cephalothorax. So they have a bigger body. So what Loni drew was pretty much looks female just by the body, how big it was compared to the legs. Had she had made the center smaller, it would look more male.
Okay. All right. Now,
But you can't always just tell by that though. But it's just general.
All right. Question number 2, which I know you touched on a little bit, is how do tarantulas defend themselves? Do they run away, bite their attacker, throw irritating hairs, or make themselves taller? So,
Well, I hope
we'll
these
give
kids
it-
get it when you're listening.
So I actually want to say that I do believe most everyone was paying close attention to Miguel's words, because overwhelmingly it is throw irritating hairs.
Sweet.
So, and then the last question I've got for everyone is a true or false. Tarantulas prefer to hunt at night. And Miguel just got done talking about this.
Let's see what they say.
If they were paying attention. Sounds like they were though.
You know, Miguel, I know this is your first time joining us, but the kids that actually come on are fairly smart.
They are.
I could tell.
They are. So we've got it, that overwhelming response again. It's 75% say true.
That's awesome. Thanks, Michelle.
No
So,
problem.
Miguel, I don't think you have a hawk, right?
No, we don't currently keep a hawk. Being that they're that they're native animals and stuff, you can keep them, but they need a permit. That is on my wish list at some point, maybe here at Kidspace, to have an animal ambassador hawk, maybe when it's not releasable because it's permanently injured or something. But as of right now, no avians at all here at Kidspace. Just we're just generally reptiles, exotics, and we're going to be adding some mammals pretty soon too. So looking forward to that.
Cool. So I brought that up, you guys, because I want to let you know the reason that we picked the hawk was because it is part of our partnership with Kidspace with our Animals in the Arroyo series. So it didn't necessarily mean that it had to be an animal that Kidspace always has, but we wanted to give the option of showing a really cool hawk and talking about a hawk and painting a hawk. So what hawks usually are in this neighborhood, Miguel?
You get Cooper's hawks, but the most common hawk that we get here, and it's probably the most dominant hawk in the U.S., is the red-tailed hawk. That's usually the one we get. And we actually get one when we're closed. Those of you who have been to Kidspace, you know, the Arroyo River, the play adventure, when it's off, usually one of the red-tailed hawks will come down and bathe in it.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
About once a month we catch her in. I assume it's the female because it's pretty big, and
Yeah.
in general females are bigger than the males. And that hawk is pretty big, so I'm guessing it's the female.
So that seems to happen a lot in wildlife, Miguel, that the females are a lot larger than the males. Why is that?
It depends. Yeah, it varies in the species, but yeah, it's common. It's usually because well, one of the theories is because they're the breeders are the ones who do offspring, so that to their advantage to be bigger, have more weight and stuff, because they're the ones that are producing, you know, eggs for offspring.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend to be bigger. Versus males don't have to be so big because you know, they're not producing anything. But it's the opposite, like say the cat family, like lions are huge and the females are smaller, so it just depends. But in the bird world, it seems like the females are always bigger.
And that's also because they're protecting the their nests, correct?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes they share responsibilities. You know, some birds will share staying on the nest. Like sometimes the female will go hunt and the male will sit on the eggs. I believe in the case of the red-tailed hawk, though, it's the male that generally goes out and gathers the food.
That's cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about sort of their relationship with one another?
Well, it's kind of cool. They usually pair for life. They average, you know, 2 to 3 eggs, you know, on average. People think sometimes it's higher depending on how well the female was able to hunt and, you know, get some storage, you know, built in some reserves. I mean, how much you consume during the year. They have great eyesight. I mean, I think it's like 8 times stronger than ours, and they feel like they could see accurately to almost like 2 miles out. So they could see like a rodent or something that's, rusted like 2 miles out. So they have very good eyesight. Very
Wow.
fast too. They like to dive bomb their prey when they using those claws, which we call talons, and they can actually dive at a top speed at about 120 miles an hour, which is very fast.
Wow, that's amazing. Would you say that a lot of, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. You were saying?
Oh yeah, because usually people just see, they don't think they're that fast because they just see them kind of soaring kind of up high, and that's usually when they're hunting or looking for something down below. But once they commit and they see something, they just go straight down. I mean, they hit the top speed of 120, so they drop altitude really fast, and they hit really hard too.
Are other birds afraid of them?
Yes and no. The crows in general do, but when they're trying to either too close to their nests, ravens and crows will kind of gang up and scare them away, try to push them away. But it's generally in numbers. It's usually not one-on-one. Ravens are pretty big though. Ravens can hold their own. But sometimes I have seen here personally at Kids Space a crow try to pester a red-tailed hawk, and the hawk wasn't really doing anything. It was just cruising. It looked like it was looking for something, but the crow, I guess, felt it was too close to its nesting site, so it was harassing it. And next thing you know, like within 5 minutes, like the hawk wasn't having it anymore and just snatched him out of the air and took him as dinner. So it was like interesting to watch that dynamic.
Yeah.
So yeah, people will challenge them, but you got to be careful because if they turn on you, I mean, they're powerful predators, especially with those talons. They're no good.
Do they occupy the same nests over and over again every season, or do they move on to other areas?
Usually they usually always nest in the same area. So it's common to see the same pair. Like it seems like to me, since I've been here at Kids Space 3 years, it seems like it's that same pair that's here every year. That like when I see them active during like the spring and summer, it seems like it's the same two all the time. I usually don't see any new ones coming in. So I think it's like they have their established territory, so no other hawks really come in. Cooper hawks come in, but they don't mess with them. Cooper hawks are just kind of opportunistic and try to snatch a squirrel here and there, and that's about it.
So they do hunt on squirrels. What else do they eat?
They pretty much, I say 80 to almost 90% of their diet is mammals, rodents. So squirrels, chipmunks, small possums.
So anything.
they've been even known to take pet cats that are small.
Oh wow.
I mean, they're quite the predator. So just they're opportunistic, but it's mostly small mammals that they get, which is good because they control the rodent population.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk
about their benefits. How do they benefit us, Miguel? I mean, that's a very selfish thing to say, just like, how do they benefit humans? But honestly, I think a lot of people see sometimes birds as not being as helpful as they are. I mean, what do they do here for us in sort of the world,
Well, the main thing they do is kind of rodent control. Along with a lot of the other predators here, they maintain the balance. So they keep the population of squirrels in check. Sometimes even the crows in check because they will take birds. So predators in general just keep since their diet is mainly like 85 to 90% rodents. I mean, they take out a lot of rodents out of the environment that would, either damage crops or, pests in your home and stuff. So they keep all that under control. So it's to our benefit to have them in our area, which is nice because I do see a couple of them here, like almost every day, cruising around. And there's a lot of squirrels here in the Brookside, so I'm assuming that's what they go after mostly.
So I know a lot of people like have these images, and you see in movies and things like that about hawks like being pets or delivering things or sort of in that way. And I see that there's people that actually seem to have jobs working with hawks. What is that called?
Oh, well, it depends. The art of keeping hawks and training them to do various tricks is called a falconry. And to be a falconer, it's quite a process. You gotta, you gotta keep one. You gotta raise one. And I think some of them require you to raise a wild one, like a young wild one. and teach it how to target, the gauntlet, the glove, how to wear what we call jessies, which is those leather straps. So once they land, you can grab the leather strap, so it kind of helps you keep control of the bird. They make
Wow.
them target. Some of them they even teach to hunt. So like they'll even teach them to hunt, go after small game like rabbits and stuff, squirrels. They'll teach them to hunt. They'll teach them to target. They'll teach them. They'll even do certain things where they release targets that are in the air, and they'll just go out in the air and just snatch them. It's quite the thing to watch. I mean, it's impressive, but it's quite you got to be dedicated to be a falconer, because they require a lot of time and effort, and you got to be an apprentice as a master falconer, and you got to learn from them, and then from there you move your way up. So it's quite the discipline to be one.
That's really incredible. And how, I mean, I'm sure it takes years to kind of get to that point, right?
Yeah, but also too, there's people who also work with them, like, for animal actors and stuff. People will get hawks, and then they train them to come on command. Usually they're very food motivated, so they'll usually get them to come and go with food treats, rewards. So they're very smart animals. So you could train them pretty quickly as long as they understand, A plus B equals C. They're pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah, we have at our shelter, we'll have people who will just go and adopt pigeons, and then they train them as well. So there's a lot of that sort of, I think people just take joy in being able to communicate with an animal and sort of work with them and make them be able to do things together. It's really interesting. There's a whole
Yeah,
group
they
of
used to,
work
they used
people.
to send messages with them, like pigeons and even hawks. They tie messages to their legs, and then they send them off, and they send off like little scrolls, and they could send messages to various places. So it's very interesting how we've used birds in the past for like communication.
Yeah, and they were actually considered, I would say then, right, like working animals, because they helped humans communicate when we didn't have, the mail or FedEx or Amazon or all these other ways to send things, right?
Or texts.
I know, now it only takes seconds.
Yeah, we don't even, it's incredible. Like humans, as in general, like a long time ago, all the animals that we kept and domesticated, we kept them usually for a purpose, and then some eventually became pets and stuff. But humans always used them for something, whether it was for food, for transportation, communication. Humans and animals had a nice relationship where, like, there was a benefit. They got room and board for free as long as they provided a service.
Very true. How do you like it, Miguel?
I like it. It was very good. I like the blue sky.
Thanks. Yeah. So I don't know what time of day do they usually hunt?
During the day mostly. They're usually day. That's the most time you see them. I know some people say sometimes they'll be crepuscular, sometimes before that, like the sun sets, because that's when other mammals and stuff start to come out. But in general, since they have such good vision, and they're not like owls who have very accurate like night vision, they tend to stick primarily to the daylight hours.
That's so cool. Well, then I guess I picked the right color scheme, guys.
You did.
Michelle, do you have any awesome questions for the kids to answer?
Of course I do.
Of course you do, silly me, of course.
All right, a couple of questions here. So what is the average width of a hawk nest? So, and I know, Miguel, that we kind of talked about they nest in the same places, but we didn't really touch on what kind of things their nest is made of.
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, their nests are mainly made out of sticks and twigs, is really what they make their nests out of. They don't do like smaller birds where they use fibers and stuff. They usually use bigger sticks and twigs to make their nest.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this poll, and let me tell you, it seems pretty even between 3 feet, 3 yards, and 6 feet.
Okay.
For as far as the width, but the answer is actually 3 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, the kind of hint could have been like just, they only lay 2 to 3 eggs, so they don't really need a big nest.
Yeah, it's not like they're housing a family of 8 kids and grandma and grandpa are there too. And then the last question, true, false? Hawks have a great sense of smell.
Hmm.
And I know we did talk about this one too.
Yeah.
So it is, it's turning out to be quite interesting.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think that maybe this may have been a tricky type question because, well, yes, most of the audience is saying that it's a true statement, when in fact, it is absolutely false.
Yeah, there's always that myth that I've always heard, like, oh, don't touch birds' eggs or whatever because they're gonna smell humans and they won't go. They don't have a sense of smell at all. It's their eyesight. So I kind of gave a little clue, like, their eyesight's 8 times better than ours. They can see about 2 miles out. That's what they have that's their main sense, is their eyesight. That's how they view the world, and they view it from up high. So they gotta have a good set of eyes to see little things crawling around down there to come down and swoop.
Yeah, and I know you were talking, Miguel, about seeing the hawks over by Kid Space in the Arroyo. So if there's anybody that joined us for the Wiggle Waggle walk, that's exactly where we were. And some of our staff, after the walk, as we were cleaning up, got to witness a hawk chase a squirrel in the tree.
Wow.
Yeah, in one of the trees. It was quite entertaining. The hawk was not successful, and I think because the squirrel could dart in and out of all of the branches very quickly.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, they usually get them when they're out in the open, when squirrels are just kind of putting stuff, they're digging and they're putting stuff away or looking for stuff. That's when they come down and swoop them. In the trees, they're not as nimble because, they're flight. So yeah, the squirrels are so agile that it's hard to catch them in the trees.
Yeah, but I tell you, it was very fascinating to watch.
Oh yeah, it plays out almost every day here. I mean, if you would take your time and watch it, you would probably at least get lucky and see maybe once a week, maybe see a hawk be successful. We've even had hawks catch stuff in our staff lot. You guys have been, when we come in the back with the staff lot, there's been hawks, and I've been called out that there's an injured hawk, and I'm like, an injured hawk, and I'll go back there and there's the hawk with its wings out on the floor, and I'm like, oh no, leave it alone. I go, it caught something. So when they catch something on the ground, they normally put their wings out to kind of guard it, so you can't see. And it's like, but people were assuming its wings were out because it was injured. I'm like, no, it just caught something. Leave him alone. he'll take it away.
Yeah. So what is their wingspan?
It depends. I think it's shoot.
Uh-oh. You got a cat almost on this one.
No, I know. I just went blank. I want to say it could be close to 4 to 6 feet.
Wow. That's
Especially
really
the females who get up there.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're huge. They're very wide.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Miguel. I hope that you guys can share, right, Michelle? Please share your stuff with us. We love to see your artwork.
Yeah, I shared the link in the chat box for everybody to send in their artwork. So we are hoping that some kids do, and we can share it with Miguel as well. And we do hope that you take the chance to visit him over at Kids Space. So Miguel, are the critters behind you available for public viewing?
Some of them are for public viewing. Some of them, like our tarantulas, are off. They're not on display, but right now, coming into October, they are going to be out for our animal encounter, so people get a closer look at a live tarantula. So they're going to be coming out. We're finishing up our snake series. So right now, if you want to look at snakes, you can come down and meet one of our 5 snakes here. So
cool.
So they've been out, and we just got a new snake jaw that actually shows how snakes open their mouths and how they could open so wide. So there's a lot of cool things coming up, and tarantulas are up next coming into October.
Love it. Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Miguel, for coming. And Michelle, again, you're amazing. You're just the best. And I know we
Yeah.
have one more episode of this until it finishes off the year, right? Right, Michelle?
Oh yes, in November, Miguel is going to join us again, and actually not November, December. Miguel's going to join us again, and we're talking about the Monarch butterfly and the legless lizard, which I've already said is not a snake.
Yeah, rule of
Awesome.
thumb is not everything that slithers is a snake. So you'll learn that in December. But that one is on display here at Kid Space if you want to see them. That one is on display. So
Cool. You should check it out, guys.
So
Awesome.
hopefully some of our kids will go visit you in person to see some of the animals, and I hope that we get to see everybody or see everybody's name back here in December when we wrap up our Wild in Watercolors. All right, thanks
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
good seeing you guys.
Bye.